This podcast is supported in part by Carolina Forward, a nonpartisan organization that advocates for ideas, policies, and values to build a stronger North Carolina, one that works for all its people as a strong, diverse, multiracial democracy. For more on them, visit carolinaforward.org.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Foxfire Dispatch. I'm Gina Baxter, a local elected in Western North Carolina.
And I'm Liz Purvis, a progressive organizer building power in Granville County, North Carolina, right outside the Triangle. Before we dive into the heavy stuff this week, I gotta ask, how was your week? I know you were at the DMO Summit, which I know we gotta tell people what it is.
Yeah, yeah, immediately ringing a bell. Yeah, the Democratic Municipal Official Summit is a national summit that was held this past weekend in Durham. So that was really convenient for me to have to drive, a few hours and get there. It was great to get to see other municipal electeds. We're kind of in a unique role in the political world, always, and particularly right now with everything feeling so top down. So nice to get a sense of what other folks are doing and to get time to connect, and also just always have like a good time hanging out in the triangle. So it's good.
Yeah, definitely had some FOMO as that was going on, and the Bourbon and Bowties event that Zach Hawkins had this weekend, but did not want
Yeah,
to
that
be
was
hobbling.
fun. Yeah, you're still not really moving around as much as you would like to, huh?
No, I have another doctor's appointment this coming week, and so hopefully we will hear about how great I am healing and how we
Okay,
can maybe bear some weight, etc., etc.
staying that for you. Zach's event was really fun. Zach Hawkins is a state representative and he's wonderful. He's always so engaged and so on top of stuff.
I thought it seemed like a good time because back when I did drink more than once a month, I
Hmm.
drank whiskey and bourbon in particular, and was like, oh, this feels like a good time that I know I can hold my own at these days because I am a lightweight.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
it sounded like a good time.
Wish you could have been there. Food was good. It was fun.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
We had some fun drama in Granville politics this week.
Tell me all about it.
Definitely not as good a time as a bourbon and bow ties party. Um, but so we are getting ready for the Granville County Democrats to do a candidate forum this week in place of our regular monthly meeting. So this will be a candidate forum for the Granville Dems endorsed candidates only.
Okay.
Because like,
Okay.
why would we give an opportunity to those who we do not think are the best for us to support for these roles? But it's come to my attention that some folks are a little sour about the endorsement process that the Granville County Democrats instituted this year.
Tale as old as time. What's going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. Oh, an independent had a problem with not being included. And I, was at a table with her and was like, hey, I hear you, but you have to understand there were 5 registered Democrats for a 4-way race that you're running in. And our plan of organization actually says we can't support a not Democrat
Hmm.
over a Democrat in
Hmm.
a race.
Have y'all talked about why she's not a Democrat? I mean, is she progressive?
I don't know that I would characterize her as progressive. Her politics aren't super clear yet. She moved to town about a year ago. And I also, that's hard too because like I moved to town and then very quickly got involved in politics. But how I chose, like, what to me makes sense is diving into the service of this work, of the phone calls, the canvassing, the poll greeting that needs to be done, the back end work of making sure we have blue ballots printed in this county. And,
Yeah.
folks could get involved
Interesting.
afterwards too. Like people could have a come to Jesus moment, like we have so many of us had in 2016. But I do, yeah, a little side eye. And also just fundamentally, like, it would be so silly for a Democrat to go to the Republican locals and be like, I would like to be considered for your endorsement process. Like it's
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
not how it works.
And I think we'll probably see more of that. So, independents and affiliateds are the largest voting group in the state of North Carolina. Last year, they surpassed either party. And I think that's very telling. And I think we'll probably see more of that kind of interaction where people say, like, well, but I'm aligned. And then we have a conversation about, well, then why aren't you registered? Or like, what, you know what I mean? Like, I
What are
think that
you
could lead to
getting out of this
some,
choice not to caucus with us formally when you say I vote with you and when you
yeah.
say I'm aligned with you policy wise?
Yeah, I'm so curious about that conversation because we have a lot of space to talk about that, right? Like as that trend continues, there will be a lot of situations where people are asked to articulate, I was unaffiliated for years.
Mm-hmm.
Um there was not incredible party infrastructure in Henderson County at the time, and I kind of felt like, I might be able to pull a Republican primary ballot and actually be able to vote in some local races that I couldn't vote in otherwise. Um, Felt a little disenchanted with party politics,
Mm-hmm.
and I've slowly come back to it. But I think it's very rare, like it's becoming more and more rare that we'll find party hardliners. So I think that opens up a really interesting conversation about the way that we kind of move through party politics as they become less popular nationally and certainly in North Carolina.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. And in this particular situation, this person couldn't understand or felt it was unfair. We were supporting an independent mayoral candidate, but did not consider supporting her. And there's not a Democrat running for that mayoral seat. And so, out of the two choices, who are both independent, we're going to consider who's aligned with our values. But if there had been a Democrat running for that seat, Mayor Nurse wouldn't have gotten the option to earn our endorsement because there would have been a Democrat to support.
That is interesting that that conversation is happening at that level from that candidate. It feels like, not something that I think the reaction from a lot of people would be like, well, you endorse based on values, right? But what we hope through having a party mechanism is that those are the overarching value systems and they all fall within the party mechanism. So we're guiding each other. We start at the precinct level, we build our values there. We work upward to the state level and the national level,
Mm-hmm.
and that we can co-support up and down through those values. And that's not always the understanding that comes from endorsements and things like that. And endorsements are always so interesting to me. It just feels so messy. I don't envy y'all having to wade through endorsements.
I feel like part of the work of the county party is to provide a clear picture of the people that we are asking you to support. And those are
Mm-hmm.
the Democrats we are asking you to support, and barring the opportunity to support a Democrat, an independent who also reflects our values. And so,
Yeah.
like that, it's part of making it clear because, and I think it's also part of, like, to me, acknowledging the hollowness of these nonpartisan races, in that, like, Republicans have been fighting and playing in this field for years, whether it's their really robust poll greeting operations or just
Man.
a number of ways that you get involved at the local level. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really silly, tie your own hands behind your back stuff to say, as an entity, a county party is gonna not choose to not do this. But I
Oh,
can
sure.
also see how, like, you as a nonpartisan elected official would, or no, you're a partisan elected official. Do you have a primary? No,
Nope.
non.
I'm nonpartisan.
Okay. Then I guess it could also really make sense to me if you're like, well, but because in the spirit of the name of the kind of official that I am, I'm not going to take a personal public opinion about a partisan. Like, that also makes logical sense to me.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to that theory that we've talked about a lot where like everybody has a role and
Hmm.
like figuring out what that role is, and like people do need to, and myself included, like need to and appreciate the guidance of their aligned party when they go to the polls. And we see it work the other way too, right? Like how many of us are clocking who's endorsing and not endorsing Mamdani right now? I
Mhm.
notice.
I notice, and then I notice when those Democrats tell us about how we're such a big tent that we need to let the anti-choice Democrats in. And
But not the free transportation Democrats.
definitely not the guy who believes in like subsidized grocery stores. Not him.
Right. No new stuff. We got to draw the line at new ideas. That's really.
Yeah, yeah, but and here's the thing. So I think this like Mom Don like just to tie this to national politics for a second. He is the Democratic candidate for mayor in New York
Yep.
City. It's past the primary. He's the Democratic candidate. It is as party Democrats, part of our role when we wear that hat is to support the Democrats running in our state. And so it should really be a no-brainer that in a contest between Democrat and the alternative, that Kathy Hochul, who did, and Jeffries, who didn't, and Chuck Schumer, who hasn't, all need to get behind the Democrat as opposed to the or other thing that is not a Democrat. And
Yeah.
that is like the root of Democratic Party endorsements. In the same way, it's the root of Republican endorsements. Like these
Yes.
endorsements are for the people in this in group. That's how it works. And we want you to join us, but that's a benefit of choosing somebody to caucus with, is like
Right.
being able to be in that group for consideration for things like this.
I think we might have a bell moment real quick. Can you explain what you mean when you talk about caucusing with someone?
Yeah. So when I am saying caucusing with someone, I am saying like we are not to use another big word, but like in coalition with each other. Like we are teaming up. We the Democrats have teamed up together with the other Democrats, and we are rowing our boat towards the common collective goal of healthcare for all who want it, or affordable housing for all, or insert other great good policy here we have no fucking chance on in this Trump administration. But like the idea is that you're working together to do something. And it would be used to refer to like the the House caucus or the Senate caucus in Congress or in your state legislator, if that's also what they're called, like they're called here in North Carolina. And so that kind of caucusing is the group of Democrats who are in your state house or your state senate, and they are caucusing together. They are acting as a unit together and wielding their power.
There is infrastructure to be had, and we want people to abide by it, especially in cases like Mamdani's, where there's a shift and excitement and new ideas. And we know that when that happens on the right, when there's a shift and excitement and new ideas, the party is all about supporting those efforts and encouraging those speakers to be loud and to be radical. And then when we get them, we're like, what? I don't know. And now, I shouldn't say we. When we as Democrats get those candidates, there is some hesitance from some folks within the party, long-term party members, about how much we're going to support those new exciting ideas. And that feels frustrating.
Yeah, especially when this is somebody who, speaking of Mondani, has fundraised to the max of what he can fund. Like people are so eager
Yes.
to give him money that he's raised all the money he could raise, and we have weeks to go. And
Yes.
I think they had 35 different canvas launch points this past weekend that we're recording across the boroughs. And
I'm
that's
going to cry.
crazy for one campaign. That is running a state level campaign at the mayoral campaign level. That is
In the
like
best
crazy good
case,
work.
that's the
Yeah.
best case scenario for an entire state. It's crazy. When he made that post that said, like, the caption was, I'm once again asking you to stop giving me money. I was at work and I hope my boss doesn't listen to this, but I was at work and I cried. I was like, we're doing it. Like, it's so cool. It's just so exciting and so fun. And like, also, yes, Bernie reference. Yes, like relatable content and messaging, just all around so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like
Um,
the party establishment needs to remember that when we are a big tent, it goes both ways, and we support people after their primaries and we support them all Hooah.
Do you want to talk about what's happening in North Carolina?
Yeah, let's transition over to that topic. I read about this story, but it also hit really close to home in the past couple of weeks. And the story that we're about to talk about is also really kind of indicative of the way that decisions in Raleigh, decisions in state capitals ripple out in our day-to-day lives across the states. And Governor Josh Stein very recently signed an order. It'll be like about 2 weeks to the day that this episode comes out. But he signed an order so that if you are between the ages of 18 and 65, that order can act as a like um proof of pre-existing condition to allow folks to get a COVID-19 vaccine. And this has been personal because I have had a couple of senior gentlemen who are in our Grandma Dems community who have called me over the past couple of weeks to let me know that they went and they tried to get their COVID shot because they were over 65 or they had this, that, and the other pre-existing condition and they were over 65, only to be told that they had to go to the doctor in order to get an approval or a prescription for this shot. And that's really a shame. That's not how it's been working for years. And going and getting a prescription means calling the doctor. It means scheduling an appointment and waiting for that appointment. It means most people are paying a copay. And these two older fellows were lucky. By the time I followed back up with both of them about where we were with like figuring this out with Josh Stein, they had both already gotten their doctor's appointments and were planning to get their COVID vaccines. But they had insurance and a car and the ability to make and keep the appointment. And not everybody does. That is a one more thing for so many working and poor people. And if you are working hourly shifts, if you don't have paid sick leave, if you don't have insurance at all, this RFK's minor inconvenience is really a barrier that can delay or even block people from getting vaccinated. And that is how more and more people die from a preventable disease.
That is so frustrating to hear about. And it's happening in the very clear and present foreground, while in the background, there are all of these conspiracy theorists giving additional fuel to the fire of this hesitation. And it's making it harder for public health systems and public health officials to do their jobs or to have anybody take them seriously.
Yeah, exactly. And so where Stein's order comes in is that he said no more red tape. If you're over 65 or you're an adult who's 18 and older and you have a high risk condition that's on the CDC's list, which could be something like asthma or COPD, diabetes, ADHD, heart disease, or cancer, or even obesity, which hey counts when you need to get your shot to stay healthy. Like use whatever you need to use, but
Mhm.
you can go to your pharmacy and get the shot. And you can do that without a doctor's note, without medical documentation. They may ask you questions to like verbally affirm that you have one of these conditions, but you're not required, because of Stein's order, you're not required to provide any medical documentation. Um, and that's really important because we know that vaccines are one of the most effective ways to prevent serious illness and hospitalization and death. And the North Carolina Health and Human Services Secretary, whose name is Deb Sangvai, said, vaccines protect not just individuals, but families and whole communities. And Medicaid is already covering the cost for beneficiaries, which is critical for low income North Carolinians. And I just think about collective care when I think about vaccines. I think about how this is so not an individual, that when people make it an individual choice, it helps more and more people get sick and get ill.
Yeah, I think my problem with the anti-vax theory and network is that what we're offering in no way forces anybody to get vaccinated. It just allows people who want it to access it. So it's not even like entering the conversation around community. We're still fighting back a narrative against community care. We just also want to let people access what they would like to access as far as their individual healthcare. And this recent move that we have finally gotten here in North Carolina, Josh Stein even pointed out that it puts us back in line with most of the rest of the country.
Yeah, and like, boy howdy, it's a shame to really to be trailing behind when it comes to something like public health. And I feel like that also really is where you can see, how the power is, how the power like spreads out among the North Carolina, legislature, executive, and judicial branches, and how weighted we are towards the branches that have Republican control. This order is, like you said, it's not about trying to make people do something that they don't want
It's
to
not a
do.
mandate.
No, it's not a mandate, but it is about making sure that folks in Greenville County and Henderson and, all across the state can get a life-saving vaccine without jumping through hoops that could be delays of a couple days or a couple of weeks. And the timing of this order really matters too, because there's a federal advisory committee on immunization practices, ACIP, and they haven't released their recommendations for this season's COVID vaccines yet. They're expected to later in September. And Stein's order makes sure that North Carolinians aren't left waiting any longer. I talked to a pharmacist and they were like, we have the new vaccines, but we can't give them to you until this ACIP rule. And like, that is dumb. There are going to be people with like genetic like immune disorders. There are going to be people who get sick in the delay that is the couple days or the couple weeks that it's going to take. And it's such a fucking shame.
Yeah. Yeah. And these are really the realities of how policies at the state level affect us. And this is why, like, when we talk about everything being political, and people are like, oh, well, you guys got to make everything political. Like, this is exactly political. Things that are policy driven are political. They have the same root word because they mean the same thing. Like that it is a one-to-one that this is a political issue completely. And yeah, there's a universe where it shouldn't be, but it certainly is. And there's no real arguing against that at this point, as pharmacists are like, we really wish we could do our jobs, but our hands are tied until a committee review because this is such a high pressure discussion. And the ACIP conferences have been so high press. And we're all just kind of out here being like, hey, can I just get my shot during cold, like it's cold season, like it has been every year for our whole lives.
Yeah, really frustrating. And it shouldn't, like, fundamentally, as like the value system that I have, like I don't think it should take this much effort to remove, like, the government should not be putting these kinds of harmful barriers into place in the first place. Public health is politicized really to the point of absurdity with all the anti-vax nonsense. It's like bring back measles and polio. And when states like North Carolina lag behind, like, it is not those rich anti-vaxxers who reap the consequences of their actions. It is working people. It is seniors. It is folks with chronic conditions like asthma and autoimmune diseases. And Stein's order is about aligning us more with common sense and getting to where we should have been all along in terms of helping people access the things they need that shouldn't have been, where barriers shouldn't have been put up in place in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of stuff is so policy driven that it doesn't make big headlines. It's hard to distill it down, but having those specific examples of folks that we know personally who are impacted by this is that's literally why we do like the grassroots work that we do, right? Is so that we can communicate and we can be the support for our communities when things like this happen, because this is like truly where the rubber meets the road of politicking, that you've got people coming to you saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing. And you go, okay, let me see what I can figure out. And let me see what's going on. And let me make some calls and bother my reps because, as we say every episode, that's what they signed up for. And you should bother your reps. And being able to have those community conversations to keep your community safe. And that's why we do kind of all of it.
Yeah, and I will say to my rep's credit that I did bother them in both of these instances, and they did elevate this concern to the governor before he did sign this order, and I am really appreciative of their time and understanding that this is something that really matters to
Aw,
like our community, but like the whole North Carolina community.
yes. You're Brian and you're Terrence. Right.
They're really great.
Uh,
All right. So with that, I am curious if you want to talk about the national blip. I know we've had some big funding cuts at the federal level that are rippling out and impacting North Carolinians.
yeah, I do want to. As always, no, I don't, but we must. I can guess the funding cuts you mean because there have been so too many to count, but which ones are we talking about today?
Yeah. Okay. So today for the National Blip, we were talking about PBS, specifically the public broadcasting system in North Carolina. Their CEO just announced layoffs because of federal funding cuts. And this really sucks, not just for like the kids who watch Sesame Street. It also really sucks because this means cuts to local journalism and to cultural programming and educational resources and in a lot of the rural parts of the state, right? Sometimes public broadcasting is what you got.
Especially during, I don't know, historic 1,000-year flooding that happened 1 year ago, where the only way that we knew it was happening was through going into our cars, hoping that we had enough gas to run it for long enough to hear what was on public radio
Yeah, really.
less than a year ago. And it is like we are already the screaming into the void of what we just experienced. This feels like a huge slap in the face.
When like it was one of the few connections to outside world, connections to resources. Like there's nothing that closes that gap when public radio goes away.
You should have seen Dylan and I when we remembered radio. Like it was probably so the storm happened on a Friday, like it was a Friday morning, and it was probably Friday afternoon that we were like, "Oh, fuck, the radio." Because we had like, no, there were no cell phones, there was no internet. Everybody knows all that stuff. But it took us a few hours to be like, "Oh, yeah, like we can turn on the radio and they'll tell us what's going on." And our public radio stations, our very local one in Hendersonville that we listen to, and then BPR and WNCW, which is BPR is Blue Ridge Public Radio, and they were great. And I mean, I don't know anybody regionally who wasn't relying on those updates for days.
Yeah, that I mean, how important, how urgently necessary, how
People were calling in looking for their loved ones. There are radio clips. So a local band made a song with some of them and just played it in DC actually with clips of people calling into public radio and saying, "My sister lives here in Swannanoa. Hang on, I'm gonna cry. My sister lives here in Swannanoa and I haven't been able to get a hold of her for 2 days. If she hears this and she calls in, will y'all let me know?" That's what we were using public radio for. So it feels very emotionally charged,
Mhm.
but it's also like just pragmatically urgent that we have access to those types of tools when things like this happen because they do and we know that they do.
And they're happening with more frequency. This was a 1,000 year
Exactly.
event that God fucking hope it does not happen again in our lifetime, but it is a non-zero chance that like 1,000 year events hit the same region in succession. And it's fucking
Yeah.
terrifying. Yeah, I just think what a slap in the face to working folks, to folks who live in rural
Hmm.
places, and again like and this is not just like a whole pile of Democrats that I'm talking about. Like this is Trump country. Like in some
Right.
ways, this really is his people, and they are just shafted by this decision to gut public radio funding. And I this is like in the arts side of things, but the National Endowment for the Arts, some of their grants went away just like that. And like I
Hmm.
know people who were in line to get one and gone. the funding for their work, their creative work just like disappeared overnight, and not an urgent public service in the way that like public radio is, but still like just something so part of what it means to be alive, doing not just the essential things, but doing the art and the beauty and the having access to those things too. And it just seemed like a hatchet job to all of it.
Yeah. If I said bread and roses, would you know what I meant?
I think I hear bread and circuses, but it's like the same kind of phrase, maybe.
So, bread and roses is a union phrase. It
Okay,
was like
never
a
mind.
union. I think it might have been the Wobblies that took it over because they were doing everything. But it was a protest song, and the words are "Give us bread, but give us roses too."
Mm.
And it's exactly that, right? Like, yeah, we give us the essentials to survive, but also we deserve to enjoy life. We deserve bread and we deserve roses. And we've been pushing public opinion in that direction for over 100 years now, right? Like the bare minimum is actually not sufficient. Like, yeah, we deserve it, but we're not done after that. Like, we still have more stuff to do. We need the arts, we need beauty, we need music, we need time with our families. We should be allowed to have time outside and time to do nothing if we want to. And so when you just said that, it just made me think bread and roses.
I love that. I love that as a phrase and as a rallying cry. And I feel like I kind of want a little baguette and rose tattoo.
So there's a mutual aid coalition, I guess I would say, out in Silva that's called Cornbread and Roses. And we and we love it, but it's very lefty. Bread and Roses is very lefty coded. So I think you would probably not be the only person with that tattoo, and I would love and support that one.
Love a good flash piece too.
Yeah,
They don't all
exactly.
need to be original. Yeah. And so anyway, I felt like it was really important for us to talk about this, which like is a national hits North Carolina kind of story, but also a national ripples out and affects so many people across so many rural states like Texas, and uh,
Yes.
PBS is cutting staff. And so that means it's working people, reporters and camera crews and producers, and the families losing access to the trusted information, and people losing a livelihood pulling that information into existence. It like you said, there is a vacuum without it. There is not something else coming
Mm-mm.
to fill the place with equally good and accurate information.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
and like I as we talk about this, I also just like one thing that I wanted to talk about into a microphone is that like as a person with democratic values, I actually think that federal dollars should pay for public goods for people, for making institutions like libraries and museums and rec centers and public pools. And as a local organizer, I also just feel like information is power. And so when public broadcasting shrinks, people get less of information and less access to power to do something about it. And though there is not something else in the radio sphere that would just come in, I think we know that like people fill the vacuums created in their lives with other things. And so that whether it's filled by right-wing media or right-wing talk entertainment shows on Fox News, or the algorithm that Facebook provides you, which is right wing, or X, which is right wing, or TikTok, which is about to be controlled by right wing billionaires. Like these, in the absence of this public good of public radio, other things get their grimy hands in there.
yes, which indicates that it's not about insufficient money. It's not like we don't have money. It's not like we don't have enough money to do this stuff. It's a priorities question.
Yeah, it's a priorities or question, and public broadcasting is part of the infrastructure that makes democracy work. And when those federal spending cuts happen, states like North Carolina end up paying the price. And families who rely on things like PBS and folks in natural disasters who don't have something else that works they will pay the price first. And that blows.
That blows. Maybe that's what we should call this episode.
I think episode 17, that blows. Everything blows.
Shit just blows. So I don't have a sound check, but I think that might be good because we're running long and you're about to do an interview for next week's episode. So do you want to tell me about Survivor? Because that sounds great.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
think the week that this episode comes out is the week that the first episode of Survivor 49 comes out. I know, 49.
How many seasons are there a year?
2.
Ew, I don't like that math.
It's been so long, Gina.
Ew. It's been on since I was 10? What? Okay. I'm having a really I'm not like a ooh, I don't want to get old person. Like I'm fine with being 36. That's a cool age. But sometimes like time stamping stuff in the cultural zeitgeist, I'm like, what? That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, I think I started watching Survivor in like middle school with my family. It was like my mom's
Whoa.
show. Like this was the shush while it's happening. We'll talk on commercials show.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I've picked it up and watched it at different points over the years and have watched a good number of the seasons at this point. But so this season is like the last big season before season 50, which is going to be a whole bunch of returning players, some who've won, some who haven't won but are really like memorable or cool players. And so I'm excited to watch 49. I'm also really excited for like what's going to happen for 50 in the spring.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure that I have like seen some Survivor at some point since it's been on for 24 and a half years, allegedly.
Yeah, it premiered in 2000, I believe.
Wild. But I can't really give me like a 2 sentence synopsis. What is it?
Okay, so Survivor is a show where a group of people get dropped onto a deserted island in Fiji. It's been Fiji for many years. And they get divided up into teams. And sometimes those teams have themes and sometimes they're like at random.
Wait,
And those
what are some themes?
Well, like, so in the 30s, there was like Gen X versus Millennial.
Gotcha. Okay.
There was past
So like qualifiers of the group or like
yeah, like
descriptors of the
brains
group.
versus brawn
Okay.
kind of stuff.
Okay.
So don't know how 49 is divided up, but it starts this week. And we, for the first time, know who's gonna be on season 50, like before 49 has aired, which they usually don't give you that much information beforehand. And so now having started this conversation, I feel like there is probably zero chance that you recognize any of the names of the folks that I was going to mention as notable Survivor alum who are returning for 50. But is it cool if I tell you about a couple people that I'm
Yeah,
like
tell me about
excited
them.
to
I'll
see?
get invested. I would love to do something other than worry about the state of the world.
Okay, well, hey, goodness knows we will need it. Yeah, no, dive into Survivor. It's a great little, you know what? There are consequences. There are real consequences for the people on the screen, and there are zero consequences for you. And that is
Yeah.
what makes reality great, in my opinion. So the first person I'm super excited they're having back, his name is Ozzy Luth. He's going to be one of the people who have been on Survivor the most. I think this is going to be his 5th season, which depending on how long you stay out could be like 6 months of playing Survivor, like a very, very long time. He's also he's an outdoor living like beast, challenge
Okay.
guru, can scurry up a fucking tree and get a coconut. And he's also like a bi icon on Twitter,
Love it.
which is really amusing. Um, and so he's gotten kind of a reputation also as like essentially they're like the greatest survivalist of the new era, the person, somebody who's like the most capable of like he's actually so chill with like being out in the middle of nowhere and eating only coconuts. It just like works for him in a way.
Okay, forgive me. Is the end game to last the longest?
The end game is so you vote people out down to like a final two or three. And at some point in it's like it starts out as like 18 or 24 people. At somewhere in the midway, the people who are going to get voted out become the jury. And so you've got a group of people who are then a jury. And you've been voting those people out this whole time. And then when you get down to this final group, that jury votes on who in the final group who's like last man standing wins $1 million.
Okay. Why do they vote? Why do they vote people out?
Presumably to like narrow the playing field of
Oh,
who is eligible.
not like not what's the reasoning behind the process, but like how do they determine who gets voted out?
Oh, interpersonal dynamics and
Okay, thank
fighting.
you. Okay. You were like, so they can play the game, bitch. Like what?
I was like, I take this very literally. That is my neurodivergence.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so Ozzy.
So there's Ozzy. There's a girl named Aubrey Brackow. She's another person from like I think the seasons that were like in the 30s. She's one of my favorite like strategic ladies. She's smart. She's like a millennial nerd, and
We
she
love
also
those.
yeah, and she plays in an emotional way in that like she's a real person when she's like interacting with people. She's not like
Okay.
a crazy person or like just a strategic wall. She's like a real like emotional being.
Okay,
Um
I'm a fan of both of these so far.
so they're both really great and I'm hoping they go real far. And then okay, so Mike White is also going to be on this season. And he's
Okay.
returning. He played within the last like 15 years he's played and he's the dude who writes White Lotus.
What?
Yeah.
Huh. So he's a screenplay writer and also
Yeah,
a
he's like a
survivalist?
Hollywood dude. Yeah, like Hollywood production kind of writer, producer. And
Okay, very interested in this guy.
yeah, so he's nerd, probably Gen X. Yeah, so I kind of love that he's back cuz he's a really good storyteller. So like he's going to be a fun person to like have little narrating moments like to
Okay.
camera stuff. But I also like I am always hoping that somebody wins $1 million who doesn't already have $1 million. Like a
Sure.
like
Yeah.
a non-retired doctor won a couple years ago and like a fancy doctor and it was
Mm,
like yeah you did a good job but like dude you're come on like the kid with the
yeah.
student loans the like working construction dude like there are just so many people that are like we've bet on breaking our body to like try to change our lives and I don't know I want the people who are risking you know just who have a lot to lose to be the people who
Yeah.
win. Um,
Yeah.
and then they have a couple of winners who are coming, and they're young folks. And so even though I'm also like really excited for those young folks. There's a guy named Kyle Frazier who was the winner of the most recent season, and he's like a young lawyer, but was also like a troubled kid, and like really I don't know, just seems like he will do really good things, and also maybe not be under the shackles of law school debt for forever
Okay.
because of his win. And then Dee Valladares, who won a couple seasons before he did in season 45, she was just like, she played a really great interpersonal relationships game with other, like, I would say, like, mid to older Gen Z folks who were on her season. And she was also just like really open about like her parents are immigrants. She really wanted to like retire them. And so like her getting to win $1 million made her able
Yeah.
to tell her parents they didn't have to work anymore, which was
Oh
like
my God,
really
that's so sweet.
yeah.
Okay, fascinating. You'll have to keep me. Okay, so this will be in the spring that those people come on, and then there's one season in between. There's a fall
Yeah.
one. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a fall one that starts on Wednesday, and I have like no idea who's gonna be in that. They're not like returning players, so
Okay, this is
it's
just
not
like a
like
regular one.
yeah, exactly. But it'll
Okay.
be like the last regular one before we have like what is I'm sure gonna be like a crazy or an effort at like a crazy season.
All right. I'm glad to have like some framework around what the fuck that show is because people Oh, okay, so when people say like you're voted off the island, they're talking about Survivor, right? Like that's like the OG get voted off the island
Yeah,
show.
you've got like a torch, and when you get voted off, your torch gets snuffed and you have to leave, and it's like a whole thing.
Oh my God, okay.
It's very symbolic. Like it really does fuck people up, like mentally.
Yeah, it
Like
sounds sad. Dylan and I were watching Alone. Have you ever watched that?
no, uh-uh.
It is a survival game or survival reality show that I think is strictly about how long people can last in the woods. The last one, the one that we just watched, was in the Pacific Northwest. I think it was Vancouver Island. And they were broken into pairs, but one member of the pair was standing still, or not like physically standing still, but in one location, right? Making camp and getting everything set up. And then another person, their partner, had to hike in to find them using only a compass bearing.
Oh my
And
God.
like, and it took most of them around a week to find their partner. So each of them are alone. One, the seeker, is like traipsing through the woods, hoping that they're reading their compass right, trying to eat like fish they catch in the wild white waters around Vancouver Island. Like, and then the people at the camp, whatever the campsite is, are like building these lean-tos and like getting everything prepped so that when their person comes back, they have the best chance of surviving the longest when they're together.
Oh my God. Yeah. See that? No, that's too much stress. That's like, those are high consequences. Like there's a whole team of like medics and shit out with Survivor. They've like shrunk the days down from 39 to like 26 or 27. They're like trying to not fuck with people's bodies because like for the first 30 odd seasons, like people did have, not everybody, but like life shifting, life altering changes to their
Yeah.
bodies from this show. And yeah.
Yeah, people think that you can like just go to the woods, and like certainly you can, but I have been a woods girl, not a survivalist, but like a very comfortable in the woods girl for most of my life, and backpacking for 2 weeks with all of the supplies that I need gets more and more brutal every year. Like it takes a lot out of you. I think people are very nonchalant about what being alone in the woods for a while is like, but it's really like it will kind of fuck you up. I'm glad that Survivor put some boundaries on it because it's like there are consequences for sure, especially if that's not your usual experience.
Yeah. No, it's wild. I think people do a better job. I think a lot of people try to prepare probably better than they used to know to prepare for it.
Yeah. And
Um
probably at this point, if you're not prepared for Survivor and you want to be on Survivor, that's your fault.
Yeah, and I think like they've talked a little bit about it. Like there's a whole Survivor podcast that Jeff Probst does that I and my dad both listen to after every episode. But they've talked about how like they found that like the fuck your body up consequences really were occurring from days late 20s into 30s, like a month and
Yeah.
some of this kind of extreme deprivation. And so I think just like the shrinking the game down is like helping people manage like their bodies going into starvation mode and stuff.
Yeah,
But like
we don't want that.
no, but I've been like rewatching season 40 in preparation, like as an enjoyable thing to do pre-season 50 because it was a winners at war season of just winners. And when you got voted off on that one, you had to go to like a new exile island and there were like things to do to like get ability to play and influence the game, carry all these coconuts from one place to the other. Like just you
I like how
very
coconut centric this game is. It's fun.
lots of coconuts. But yeah, no, anyway, it's a good time. And thank you for letting me tell you about Survivor for a little bit.
Yeah. Thanks for telling me. Okay, so climbing out of the survivor hole. I'm into it. I want to explore Survivor World. 49 seasons later. But before we wrap up, it is almost Oktoberfest season. Are there any that you're excited about?
Yeah. I grew up in Hickory, which has a really big Oktoberfest, October 10th, 11th, and 12th of this year. And it's like basically the whole downtown area.
Fun.
There's a little like social area where you can have your little beers outside. There's all sorts of good food and music and
Okay,
like
Catawba County. That's Catawba, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've honestly not been in like 10 or 11 years, but it used to be a really, really good time, and I'm sure it's like just gotten bigger and better.
But is there a big German population there?
Um, Not to my knowledge, but
Okay.
it is the 38th Oktoberfest, so they've been doing it for a while.
Okay. Interesting. We have one, so our favorite we have one at one of our favorite bars in Hendersonville. It's the one where Dylan and I had our wedding reception. It's called Southern
Oh.
Appalachian Brewery, and it was the first brewery in the county, and it actually like changed a lot of our laws, our policies around having breweries downtown. So we love them, and I think they've been having an Oktoberfest since they opened, because this will be their 15th, and I think it's their 15th year of being open. Theirs is September 27th, so it's kind of early. And it's always a really fun time there. They have like a big outdoor area. The part of town that the brewery's in lends itself to like lots of walking around and seeing stuff. And then there's a big one in Asheville too that I think is later. It's October 4th, and it's at Pack Square Park, so like the middle of downtown Asheville.
So you got 3 weeks of Oktoberfest possibilities in
Yeah.
Western North Carolina.
Yes, get on out here and drink some beer and eat some pretzels.
Indeed.
I went to a German bakery in Chapel Hill called Google Hupf. Have you been there?
No, I have not.
I had some of the best bread that I've ever had in my entire life from there. It was like a German sourdough, and it's so good. So I'm very into German cuisine right now. It's a perfect time for me to have a bunch of Oktoberfest activities.
Yeah, I get some schnitzel and some pretzels and some strudel.
I forgot about schnitzel. Oh my God. Yay. Also some early voting will be happening.
Yeah, early voting is happening around North Carolina right now. We've got some folks with September elections. We've got early voting for October elections happening right now. And then the November elections, early voting starts October 16th. So if you're in a place with the November election, just hold your horses, but we're coming.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Foxfire Dispatch. If today's discussion lit a spark, you can help us fan the flame by sharing this episode with your neighbors, dropping us a note on socials, or emailing us at thefoxfiredispatch@gmail.com with your questions, stories, and ideas for bringing about a better South.
We put out episodes weekly on Fridays. So if you like our content, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts or at the Foxfire Dispatch on Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky, or the Foxfire or know the Foxfire Dispatch on TikTok and Twitter, aka the Very Bad Place. Until next time, remember, we are who we're waiting for. Go get in some good trouble. Yeah.
Yay, another one.